Black America, I'm Hugh Hewitt, the ReliefFactor.com studio. Where are we going in this country? I'm joined by Representative Doug Collins of the great state of Georgia. I want to start with the good news, Representative Collins. Good morning. Great to have you on.
Good morning. It's good to be well.
I read about the tribute to Johnny Isakson yesterday, Senator Isakson, and I'm looking at the picture of John Lewis, the great congressman from Georgia, embracing Johnny Isakson.
Yes.
And I am inspired by what happened yesterday. Were you there?
I was about 20 feet away, and it was a time when the Georgia delegation had gotten together to honor Johnny, and John Lewis came down and gave a very emotional, stirring tribute to Johnny, and Johnny and him go way back 30-plus more years. And what was really amazing to me, and if you could have seen it, live, is here's two older warriors for their causes who, at the end, you saw Johnny, whose body is dealing with Parkinson's. You saw John, who's been, who's dealing with the age of carrying the burdens that he's carried, sort of moving very slowly across the aisles to meet each other and meet in an embrace. If that's not what America is about, I'm not sure what. If you don't get a tear in your eye or at least emotion driven there, then move somewhere else. Don't blur America. That is what America looks like.
Your colleague Austin Scott, Republican member from Georgia, who organized yesterday's tribute, appeared to hold back tears when he went up to the podium and said, "I wish all of America could be here to see that." Two icons from Georgia embracing. What a wonderful sight that I think is representative of days past and the days to come and how we should work together. Thank you both so much. Is there a chance we can get back to that, Congressman Collins?
I'm hopeful. I am very hopeful. As you know, if you've watched my career at all, that was one of the things I said to Johnny yesterday. He inspired me. He made a comment one time, is why come to Washington and not do anything? So for me, it's been work on, bills that I authored, like criminal justice reform, Music Modernization Act, the Cloud Act, dealing with data privacy. We got all that done, and we did it with bipartisan help. In fact, Hakeem Jefferson and I, we were putting out some major piece of legislation that the president signed, and it was good for our country. We can get back there if we'll get off of the craziness that we're in right now. And it's possible. There's still behind-the-scenes discussions that I'm having all the time. But it goes back to ending at the end of the day is who we're up here for, and that is the people we represent. And I think it's going to take a while. We always have these seasons. There's ups and downs, but I think it will come back. And for those of us who are fighting for it, I think we'll see it.
Now, step number one would require Adam Schiff to really do some soul-searching and realize this is very destructive, what he has launched here. And I believe Tim Morrison yesterday, I want to play for you the key clip from yesterday's hearing. This is Tim Morrison, cut number 28, please.
As I stated during my deposition, I feared at the time of the call on July 25th how its disclosure would play in Washington's political climate. My fears have been realized. I understand the gravity of these proceedings, but I beg you not to lose sight of the military conflict underway in eastern Ukraine today, the ongoing illegal occupation of Crimea, and the importance of reform of Ukraine's politics and economy. Every day that the focus of discussion involving Ukraine is centered on these proceedings instead of those matters is a day when we are not focused on the interests Ukraine, the United States, and Western-style liberalism share.
Congressman Collins, let me expand on that. Every day that Adam Schiff runs up the tab, the people who are going to pay that are the people of Ukraine, Venezuela, Hong Kong, Israel, our military that hasn't gotten an appropriation or anything other than a continuing resolution or a pay. Do not they realize what they are doing?
I wish I could say that all of them do. Some of them do not. They have so focused, and so this is something to realize, and this is the sad reality. That this Speaker Pelosi and I'll just give her credit, she's an excellent politician. She's an excellent tactician. She's proven that before, but she's also willing to do something that most leaders are not. She's willing to put the House on the line. She did it with Obamacare. She did it with the CFPB. She did it in 10 when she said, I am ideologically bent. This is what I want to see, and if it costs me the House, fine. She has now done the same thing with impeachment because she is so invested in, I believe, in the presidential election of next year that she's willingly put the House on the line. And how I know this is not necessarily these impeachment hearings. It's exactly what you just said. We're running on CRs. Did you know and I had asked a member of the Appropriations Committee the other day, I said, when did y'all meet, to discuss, fixing the CR or anything? And the person told me we had not met as a committee since June. That should shock everybody in this country that we have been dealing with appropriations and funding of government. And the Appropriations Committee, Nita Lowey, who's the chairman, has not even called her committee together. This is being decided at the highest level. So don't blame committee members. Blame the Speaker and the leadership of the Democratic Party and others who are not getting input. So this week we're passing a CR to push it down the line 30 days. And it's just this is what's not getting done. And in my committee in Judiciary, we've not done anything all year, and all of a sudden we figured out that we actually have to pass things dealing with things that are expiring at the end of the year. We've not done any of this so far. So this is who's dying. Not only the folks that you talked about around the world, where we're not focusing on being the bright, shining light that we are, but we're not even taking care of the stuff here at home.
Congressman, Senator Scott was on earlier today, and he explained in very down-to-earth terms. When you do a CR, the military is locked into what they spent money on last year, stuff they don't want to spend money on this year. They are locked into last year's pay. The military doesn't get a pay raise. They are locked into weapon systems that are not what the weapon systems they want to fund. They're locked into all the mistakes that were made last year when the Congress does a CR. They are hurting America's national security.
They are. I'm a member of the Air Force. I'm still in the Air Force Reserve. And I tell you, because I'm at headquarters at Warner Robins, and the issues that we have right now is not being able to plan. We had to cancel training. We had to cancel things last year because of some of the issues that we had in the shutdowns and the CRs that follow that. The CR locks the military in. Most people don't realize, we'll say, well, they get the same money they get last year. But you cannot do year-to-year things like contracts and buying and appropriations that can't go over a year. You can't do those things if they don't last within the time frame of the CR. So this is why you need a long-term spending plan and a long-term spending application to get us, where we need to go. The military is the tip of the spear in suffering in a CR, and that is just fact. It's not fiction, and this is the things that we just don't get done, and why you saw almost every Republican yesterday vote against this bill. Because, look, I want to go lock the Appropriations Committee in a room, put everybody there, and solve this problem. Don't just keep it at the level of the Speaker and the leadership to play politics with. This is the problem that we're seeing, and the American people need to know the reality of what's going on up here.
Now, Congressman Collins, I don't want to embarrass you, but there is going to be a new senator from Georgia, and Governor Kemp has to decide between a lot of qualified people, Jan Jones and Jackie Gingrich-Cushman. We've got the names Crittenden, Poole, Loeffler, a lot of great people. You're in that mix. And I am of the opinion that the best interest of the country is to take a congressman steeped in impeachment and send them to the Senate where that knowledge will help, because we're going to have an impeachment. I believe that the partisan Democrats are locked into it. And we need someone in the Senate who actually knows the details here. Are you fully prepared to defend the president in the Senate if that happens?
Fully prepared, just as we're going to be in December when it comes back to Judiciary for their final gasp of bringing the articles of impeachment to the floor. We've been engaged in this from day one. There's been no one that has fought, frankly, in the Judiciary Committee or others, is hard for this president and for the attacks that have been on him for the last 3 years. We're fully capable of not only defending the president once it gets to impeachment in the Senate, but here's the better off. We're able to actually begin to work on actual legislation. We're not going to have, basically a learning curve to say, well, how do I go to the Senate and how do I deal with people and how do I deal with legislation? We're ready to continue that right now. That's just what we bring to the table. We also have known Georgia. It's my home for all my life. So that's where we're just saying that that's why we put in our application for it. We believe that we have, with the identification that we have with voters across the state, that we can not only do the job of defending the president, working through impeachment, because there's no books I have to learn on this. I've lived it. But also knowing that there's things that we can do for the state in legislative, which is often missed in this, not just the electoral process, but you have to legislate. You're going to be a senator on January 3rd. You've got to be able to take that from day one. We feel like we're the best to offer that.
I have stayed out of this, but now I am convinced that with the prospect of a long trial in the Senate in the offing, that the country is best served if Governor Kemp puts Doug Collins into the Senate. And I mean, no disrespect to the other people who want to be senator. Everyone wants to be senator except me. I don't ever want to go up there, and that drives me crazy. But I do look at this and I think to myself, if we go to a long trial, we need someone who knows every name and not confuse the jobs, not confuse the chain of command, not confuse the changing allegations. I mean, my goodness, it went from quid pro quo to extortion to bribery in a week. It's tough to keep up with this stuff.
Well, it is, especially when you're poll testing it. That's the sad part about this thing. The Democrats are trying so desperately. It's not been effective like they thought it was going to be effective. So they're actually out there poll testing. The Washington Post, run the article in it, and and nobody's denied it. They poll tested what actually works right. Look, if you're actually impeaching a president, you ought to have the ability to actually say what it is, why it is, and what you're wanting to do. They're just, look, this has been since November 2016. This came on a cold night in Brooklyn where they were crying because Hillary Clinton didn't win. They've tried this from day one. I've been a part of this from day one. We've got to fight back on this, and we have to fight back with truth. We have to fight back with the honesty, and then also tell what the American people what we're missing because of this charade that we're doing.
And Congressman Collins, have you had this conversation with Governor Kemp about why, no matter how many great candidates there are in Georgia, there's only one who's been ranking member on Judiciary who can go and serve this post in the Senate the way it needs to be served?
Well, at this time, I would assume that the governor will get with me. He's not got with me at this point, so we'll see if he chooses to.
Okay, last question. Do you think Adam Schiff, is there a chance he will wake up to how bad this is for the country and what the poll numbers show, which is support for the president rising, criticism of Adam Schiff rising, support for impeachment falling? Is there any chance they close this up and say, okay, let's decide it at the polls next November?
1%. I think Adam Schiff is in a district that this actually burnishes his credentials. He enjoys this. He's been doing this from day one. I mean, I've said this before, and I truly mean it. He has trouble telling the truth, much less spelling it. He can't do it because we've seen him. When you have a committee chairman right now who has been on record before even the Mueller report came out saying that the president had committed crimes and needed to be impeached, I don't think there's a lot of fairness there. So I think he can't back up now. I think he's got to go forward with it, and unfortunately, he's taking the country with him.
So what will happen? 1 minute left. What will happen at the Judiciary Committee when they're done with the sham show trial in intelligence? It goes over to impeachment. What are they actually going to charge him with, and what's going to happen?
That's a good question. I think you're going to see obstruction. I think you're going to come back to some things that they've not talked about in a while. You're going to see obstruction. You're going to see some other things I don't think you're going to see a quid pro quo. They may try bribery, which I think is a really stretch. But, this is the thing that they're going to see. So I think what we're going to see, my biggest thing is, though, for all your listeners, Adam Schiff must testify. He must testify at Judiciary and be open to our questions, my questions, and the president's questions about this report that he's going to put out. That's the bottom line that needs to happen.
He's a fact witness.
He is. He's a fact witness in this whole thing. And if he doesn't testify, then they've just shown that they have no interest in fairness at all.
Congressman Doug Collins, thank you. Look forward to talking to you as this goes forward. I hope Governor Kemp is listening on his drive to work this morning. Thank you, Congressman.